All right, we might get started because we know everyone's got limited time in this lunch hour. So good afternoon and welcome to AMGC's In Conversation With webinar series. So my name is Charmaine Phillips and I am AMGC's director here in the Northern Territory. So I'll let you know firstly that today's session is being recorded. So if you do have to duck away, you can come back and listen to it. And as I always do, I'd really like to begin today's session with acknowledgement to country. So in the spirit of reconciliation, AMGC acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that to respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples that are joining us here today from whichever land that you are on. And we are here on Larrakia land in Darwin. So thank you for taking the time out of your day to join in the conversation. This series of 30-minute webinars have been designed to give local manufacturers information on national bodies that are available to support and assist them with their manufacturing endeavours. So however, if you are joining us from outside of the Northern Territory, welcome, and I'm sure you'll also get a lot from the information that is shared today. So today I have with me Bradley Truen, the National Sales and Business Development Manager at Bosch Australia Manufacturing Solutions, otherwise known as BAMS. A bit of a mouthful, so we'll call it BAMS going forward. So today's conversation will take about 20 minutes. So if you do have any questions, I've allowed 5 to 10 minutes at the end to answer them. You will be on mute, so please use the chat function, which is at the top of your screen, to send through any questions throughout the session, and we'll take you off mute at the end so then we can discuss or you can have a chat with Brad. So Brad, welcome. How are you today?
Good, thanks, Charmaine. Thank you for the invite to give a speech or presentation about BAMS and what we can offer to the market.
Great. So I guess, Brad, Bosch is such a household name. So today's webinar really aims to give our audience insight into the services that Bosch Australia Manufacturing Solutions, or BAMS, offers to support local manufacturers. So Brad, can you briefly run through what services BAMS provide broadly before we talk more specifically about your new facility?
Yep, I'll bring up a slide to show whilst we're talking this through to sort of give some context. So yeah, as you mentioned, a lot of people know Bosch as a very large global organisation, predominantly because of white goods, power tools, automotive components, etc. So our team here in Australia, as mentioned, is a little bit different and a little bit left field for what most people know Bosch for globally. So our team focuses on supporting the Australian manufacturing market with 3 distinct fields. One is the robotics and automation that you see in day-to-day manufacturing environments. An example here of a project that we did for a medtech customer up in Brisbane, shown on the slide. We then also provide manufacturing consulting, so particularly useful for early stage customers that are going from a new product development to a new manufacturing facility, or even established manufacturing partners that are looking for efficiency improvements, etc., and optimization of existing operations. And then the third area we support is equipment servicing, so providing service and support with a very capable team on a national basis, not only for the equipment that we've provided to customers, but also for other existing equipment out in the field that customers might have trouble servicing or finding servicing support for.
That's good to know that you service other people's equipment as well, because I know that's, I guess, one of the challenges here being in Darwin and so remote and removed. A lot of the technology that's being introduced into the territory, there is that challenge with being able to get it serviced or maintained if something goes wrong. So that's great to know.
Yep.
So I guess like many Australian manufacturers, I think 80% of Australian manufacturers are SMEs. Many of the manufacturers here are SMEs or innovative startups. So how can BAMS support these smaller manufacturers?
Yep, so particularly through that consulting aspect of our business, we've had a lot of success with startups. And to give you a bit of an idea of the context of how that works, so we have a consulting team on site here in Australia who've got quite a broad-based capability, whether that's in Industry 4 topics, production, operational topics, logistics, or even simultaneous engineering around topics like design for manufacture. So quite a broad capability and understanding from a manufacturing background, not from an automation background, but from a manufacturing operational background, what it means to bring a new product to market, what it means to scale up from that laboratory or product idea phase and bringing that to market. So first of all, a competent team locally, but then on top of that, they're able to fill the gaps with the Bosch team globally. So Bosch is a manufacturer. That's our bread and butter. That's our core competence. And there's a lot of processes and standards and competencies within Bosch globally around manufacturing, and we're able to bring that competency to the local market by utilizing that global competence behind us and bringing that to the local customers.
And I guess that scale up component is one of those challenges that a lot of SMEs come across when they're wanting to take that step forward. So it's really good to know that I guess the BAMS consulting team has that expertise to help support them through that, and I guess access to the technology. So that's great.
Yep, and it's always a big aha moment when we first start that process with the customer. It really helps them map out where they're currently at and what they already know. One of the biggest things we find is it's that facilitation of pulling together the knowledge that already exists and just coalescing it into a solid set of information that they can then utilize to move forward with. So
yeah,
it's really that facilitation as much as anything else.
Absolutely. Most of the time the smarts are there, the knowledge is there, the SMEs are the ones that know about the business. It's just about
Correct.
harnessing that in the right direction to, adopt this technology.
Correct.
We touched on earlier that, Bosch has become one of country's leading factory automation companies, and you work with a diverse array of blue chip, mid-tier and startup manufacturers. So you're across the whole realm of businesses in the effort to help them to automate their manufacturing. So in 2021, is that correct? BAMS opened a new manufacturing automation centre. So can you tell me a little bit about this magnificent facility?
Yep. So first of all, need to acknowledge the support we had from the Victorian government here around supporting putting this infrastructure in place. So as mentioned, 2021 we moved into our new building, which you can see here in the picture. Previously, we had been shoehorned into a corner of this old building in the background. And when I say old, I guess it was built in the 1990s. So there's been quite a significant amount of redevelopment on the site here in Bosch Australia. You can see here in the background, this empty field is where our manufacturing facility used to sit. So where all our automotive manufacturing used to exist. That moved out with automotive in about 2013, 2014. Bosch gave our team, which was until then focused on internal manufacturing and supporting production equipment for our own use internally. That team was then refocused and given the chance to go for an external business market, completely reinvent itself, turning away from our heritage of automation for automotive market, automotive component manufacturing, and see how we could take that know-how for external customers in a very diverse array of manufacturing areas. So since then, the team has grown. I think at one stage we were about 25, 30 people. We're now up to 120 people. We're now in this new facility that was planned to keep us busy until 2028. It's now full on a daily basis, playing a game of Tetris, fitting all the production lines in. So you can see here some of the example projects that were on the floor a couple of months ago. That view is now quite different, with some of those projects having moved out and other projects moving in. So gives you an idea of the size and scale of the operations we've got, and already looking to expand our footprint to deal with the additional volumes we're seeing from local customers. And in terms of the type of customers that we're now dealing with in Australia, you can see here quite a vast array of different industries. So blue chip med techs such as ResMed, Shot Minifab, Cook Medical, Cochlear, some well-known brands there. More industrial type customers, Fletcher Insulation, for example, a local insulation provider, through to quite young startups in the energy and renewable sector, with 3RT, who's got a novel product for wood manufacture, through to Energy Renaissance, who are in the battery area, Great Cell, who's in the solar area. So quite a wide range of customers coming through our workshop.
Yeah, and myself, I was down there in May, I think, as part of our bus tour for Australian Manufacturers Week, and just the scale and the ability for your team to customize each line for the clients that you're working with was astounding. Some of those names are quite familiar to us here at AMGC, because I know that Bosch has been a collaboration partner on about 4 maybe commercialization projects.
Correct. Yeah, and that's been really good. We find ourselves, typically we're not in a two-way relationship. Typically there's a third partner from an investment perspective, whether that's AMGC or other government bodies, that are really a fundamental part of that structure to ensure that the success of our customers. So it's definitely really great to have AMGC on board with our customers to help them realise their full potential.
Right, and as I guess similar to our commercialisation grant, up here in the Territory, we've got an Advanced Manufacturing Ecosystem grant. So part of the criteria for that is to have those 2 collaboration partners again. So anyone that's looking to do a project and wanting to tap into the expertise of Bosch or the BAMS facility, please keep Brad in mind. So I'd like to turn now to the 4 key markets that BAMS focuses on. So medtech, food and beverage, general manufacturing, and renewables and sustainability, which is becoming a big topic. What are some of the ways that you work with businesses in these markets to reduce their operating costs and improve safety and quality?
Yep, so maybe we can talk through some example projects for those various industries. So this is an example here of a project that we ran during the dark old days of COVID. So in the middle of lockdown, we had a customer based up in Brisbane who had a novel product for COVID diagnostics, so a Bluetooth connected device that they got funding from the US government to get manufacturing up and running for this new product. So through, we started in 2020, so through 2021 and into early 2022, we delivered an initial project into Brisbane, and then a much larger scale project into the United States from Australia. In total, over 160 robots, 200 vision systems, across a total of 27 production lines for the customer, through the heights of lockdown, which was an interesting experience, just getting the materials, let alone the people to put that together. And I have to acknowledge we had good local partners that we were working with to support us, building equipment for us according to our own designs from other local partners. So it was really a local ecosystem that came together and put that project together with Bosch at the helm. So that's an example of a large scale customer. When we started dealing with these guys, they were a team of about 30 people working out of a laboratory in Brisbane.
Right.
So really was still a startup when we started dealing with them, and very, very quickly scaled up due to that funding coming out of the US government. Another example here is a more traditional project within the food and beverage space. So a customer that had a very, very tight requirement around end-of-line palletizing in terms of the space available. So this was not your average run-of-the-mill palletizing solution. The functionality was much the same as any other palletizing in terms of pallet infeed, stacking, wrapping, and then collating them ready for forklift pickup. The challenge here was to fit it into the very, very small footprint they had available. So a highly engineered solution to meet that customer's tight requirements on floor space in a cold room environment. So hence the requirements to not looking to expand on footprint. So yeah, quite a challenging environment in that respect. Last example here is renewables and sustainable. So this is 3RT, local IP, Victorian-based customer working with IP that's come out of university in South Australia, and with a global manufacturing footprint. So this is the overall line design. You see this little robot down the end here, just to give you an idea of what that looks like. That's this robot here, 750 kilo robot at the end of the line.
So not so little.
Not so little, exactly. So that manufacturing line is actually running the full length of our factory there, and that line is on its way to Belgium. So they've got one pilot line running in Australia, but they've got a very different go-to-market strategy. They're not they don't have the aim to set themselves up as a manufacturer. They be the owner of IP, and they're with us with production lines from us and their IP. They're setting up their customers to be manufacturing the product. So they're not looking to manufacture that themselves. So another example of a startup scaling up very quickly to an international footprint with a very different business model and very new IP.
Yeah, and I guess that's where the value add in manufacturing is that design and that IP and holding that in Australia. So these products can potentially be manufactured anywhere because that's the lowest part of that value smiley curve, which AMGC talks about fairly often. So they're just really taking advantage of proving that technology through the facilitation of your facility there, which is great.
Correct. So yeah, we've got a number of customers in that space where they've got good IP, they're wanting to retain that IP, but not necessarily limiting themselves to the footprint of Australia from a manufacturing perspective, but keeping that know-how and that competence here in Australia.
And I guess you touched on a really big word in your first project, the local ecosystem, and building up that local ecosystem so you can all scale as one and work together, and that's that collaborative piece. And that's something that AMGC up here in the territory is really pushing hard on. Don't try and break into a market by yourself against a competitor. How can you work together and really build a solution or a product that can scale better, access more markets, and you're really building each other up in an ecosystem?
Definitely. And even Bosch globally, from a manufacturing perspective, really focuses on that. You know, the key question we always ask ourselves with a new product is, what is the core and key IP that we own and we are good at? And where do we best find, what are the best things we give to other people that are better than us, that know more about it than us, that are going to be more cost effective than us in supporting us to deliver that product. And it really is a topic of collaboration, not a topic of market dominance, if you like.
Yeah, and I guess it really broadens that whole, I guess, understanding of what manufacturing can be. You can be very successful in manufacturing and not make something yourself, as long as you've got those, you know, downstream partners and collaborations. Yeah, it could be highly successful.
Yep, definitely.
All right, before we open questions up to the attendees, I'm sure there'll be some out there. I'd like to ask, is there a project that the BAM facilities has supported that has stood out to you? And can you tell us a little bit about it and how it was supported by Bosch?
Look, I think the key one for me, partly because I was in charge of running the project, was this one for Illume. I think the thing for me was showing what is possible in Australia. So this is from scratch, startup taking to scale up, delivering equipment out of Australia into the United States quicker than the US could build a building to put it into.
Wow.
So
It just gives me goosebumps.
and 160 robots in the project in the middle of lockdown. So it shows what we can do when we put our minds to it, and that you don't have to go overseas to get things done. And as you mentioned, that availability within the local ecosystem to get things done. And if you team up and you work together, there's no limits to it as to what you can deliver on.
Yeah, and I mean, as you touched on when you first introduced the Illume project, they are located in Brisbane. So it was that tyranny of distance, I guess, and the collaboration grew.
In
so
lockdown, over 2 years,
lockdown.
I met them twice in 2 years.
So it is absolutely possible for our NT manufacturers to, I guess, interact and collaborate at a distance.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right, and finally, what do we got? About 8 minutes left. Do you have any advice for those businesses that haven't yet invested in adopting automation in their business and looking to start?
Plan a bit more, and then plan a bit more.
Good advice.
So, investing in automation is not cheap. It's important you make the right decisions. Whenever we have people touring through here and seeing our remaining diodes automation area, I remind them that some of the machines we've got here are 30 years old. That means whether it's good decisions or bad decisions that were made 30 years ago, we're still living with those decisions now. So don't just focus on the cost of the automation, because the upfront investment is only a small part of the total cost of ownership of that machine. You've got to look at your big picture for the long term and make the right decisions early. Don't make those decisions alone. There's plenty of people out there you can go to for advice and get feedback and give you ideas on how to do things differently to potentially what you're currently thinking about. And make sure you get that planning phase done right up front.
Yeah, and up here, I guess, in the territory, part of that planning and what we talk to businesses about, as you said, it's not just buying that piece of equipment, it's improving the technical leadership in your business, improving your processes, getting those nutted out before you go and invest. So plan. Up here, I know that we do have a few business programs through the Northern Territory government that can help with that introduction to digitalisation. There's contacts everywhere, yourself and your team of consultants at Bosch. So there's no shortage of avenues to get information about planning the adoption of technology, because it can be a staged approach. It doesn't have to be something that happens overnight. And I think that's what a lot of people may be scared about or worried about, like just get something and everything changes. It's that staged approach and taking small steps into the adoption to make it successful.
Correct, most definitely. Yeah, typically Bosch will invest in manual lines before they invest in automation lines, purely because there's a lot you don't know, especially if you're dealing with new products. There's a lot you don't know, and those manual lines are actually really handy at the end of life of the product, where you in that ramp down phase, again, that long-term planning view. In 10, 15 years time, when I'm ramping down the product, I need a line to be efficient at the end of life, not only at the start of life. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So thank you. Half an hour is not long to put in a lot of information. And I feel that we've only scraped the surface on what Bosch and BAMS do. So before I open the floor to any questions, that was a lot of information. So a quick reminder on the points that we spoke about. So we touched on the broad array of services that BAMS offer and how they can support SME manufacturers. I guess the key takeout there is get in touch and have a conversation. We touched on the BAMS facility and some of the projects that have been supported there. And finally, your gold nugget for advice of plan. So now, if there's any questions, I'm happy for you to come off mute, or if you can pop a question in the chat box, Brad, we'll be happy to answer them. I think there's one that come up here. So it's a question. So in reference to Bosch Consulting, do you go on site to the manufacturer, and is there any cost involved up front or down the road? So that may be one. And the second one, is there an engagement contract involved?
So with the consulting team, it is a fee for service environment, if you like. Typically, initial engagement is through workshops. So we'll have some initial discussions to scope out where you are and what you need, and then typically there'll be some initial engagement of workshops, one or multiple workshops to start the process, and then it depends on the customer as to whether it's appropriate that we continue in that method, or whether it's just a basically an hourly rate. When you've got questions and you need support, you come to us, and it's at an hourly rate type basis. So we've got multiple different ways of handling the business. The question is, what's the right process for you as the customer? We don't have a fixed method that says thou shalt. Customer is king, and what's right for you is what drives the way we interact. And in terms of delivery, again, it depends what's the right solution for the customer. On site obviously involves travel costs. Typically, the question is, what's the best location to facilitate the discussion? Right. So if there's a big team at the customer, it doesn't make sense to ship them out. But on the other hand, if there's a big team from Bosch needed, maybe it's better that one or two people from the customer come to us. So we're open to both. Again, depends on what the best solution is.
Great. I've just got a quick question. I know that doing the site tour in May was really beneficial to me and understanding what you do. If there are businesses that are travelling to Melbourne or in Melbourne, is there any way that they can undertake a site tour as well?
For sure. Contact us and we can look after you when you're in town, for sure.
Great. And I'll get you to pop your contact details up at the end.
Yep.
I've got one more question here. So how do you handle IP arrangements between manufacturer and Bosch when co-developing or using the BAM facility where multiple projects are underway?
Okay, so we are mindful of the fact that we have different customers who are potentially competitors. It is an environment that Bosch is well used to. We'll be in the automotive environment, we'll be dealing with Ford, GM, Toyota, etc. on potentially the same type of technology for different platforms at the same time. So confidentiality of data is a really key point for us. We still, for example, we do work with Electrolux in South Australia, and Electrolux is a competitor to Bosch. So it doesn't stop us from doing work. We've just got to be mindful of how we manage that IP protection for everybody. What was the other part of the question? IP ownership, was it? So customers' IP remains customers' IP. Traditionally, the delivery of the machine is the delivery of a machine, but not the design of the machine. So standard sort of industry practice when it comes to automation is that when you buy a machine, you're buying the machine, you're not buying the design of the machine. So you're buying the machine itself and all the information you need to be able to maintain and keep that machine in production. So that would normally be spare parts and design of wear parts.
Yeah.
but it's not the design of the machine itself.
All right. And I think reading into that, it may have been if you've got one line with one company, another line with, I guess, a competitor, just how do you manage the IP, keeping it?
Yeah, look, typically, if it gets to a point that there's that much overlap, we will avoid engaging with the second customer.
Right.
So yeah, we will work with customers who are competitors to each other. Typically, we try and avoid that we're working on the same product range for those competitors.
Or at the same time.
Yeah, or yeah. So yes, it comes down to a contractual discussion as to what's the agreement with the customer about exclusivity, etc.
Yeah.
So.
Great. And the last comment was, could we have a copy of your PowerPoint?
Yeah, for sure, not a problem.
No worries. All right, so please, it's just on half an hour now, so please let me finish by thanking you all very much for your attention. If you would like any further information on BAMS or Bosch, the website is boschmanufacturing.au. Brad, can I get you to pop up the contact details for the BAMS facility?
Yeah, should be up.
Yep, perfect. And this session was recorded, so if you do want to go back and get any further information, please feel free. The link should be up later today. So thank you, Bradley, for your time and sharing the information on BAMS for our territory manufacturers.
Pleasure, and thank you very much for the invite.
You're welcome. See you next time.
Thanks all.